So first off, this interview is brought to you by Burn Up Coaching and the 21-Day Challenge. If you're an entrepreneur, high achiever, you feel like you're just not getting the results that you want in your life, you're not fulfilled, you feel like something's in the way, you feel like you're hitting your head on the wall and you can't figure it out, the 21-Day Challenge will help you reorient yourself to your dreams, your goals, break it down into bite-sized steps, and get that momentum, that fire back so you can succeed like never before. That's the 21-Day Challenge. If you are interested and ready to join your 21-Day Challenge, send me an email, chris@beyourgps.com, or find me on Facebook and message me there. Thanks so much in advance. Also, this is brought to you by the iTunes Review of the Week, and I am so grateful because it was left by Chad G89. And what does Chad have to say about this show? Well, Chad said, inspiring. Chris is bold with what he's doing in his 12-hour marathon. He's absolutely brilliant with what he teaches. This show really has great advice on how to better ourselves so we can better our lives. I'm excited to learn more. Thanks so much, Chad. If you want to give us a review, go to beyourgps.com/iTunes, or you can search Becoming Your Greatest Possible Self on the iTunes store and do it like that. Good or good? Super good. So those are the two things that we do. And in a moment, we're going to be bringing on Kristie. Make sure you have a pen and paper handy because this woman is going to bring the heat. She is a powerhouse. She's an influencer, and she is absolutely dynamic. So get excited and make sure you stay all the way through till the end of the interview because you never know what one idea, what one thing can transform your life. And you want to be a finisher. You don't want to be a starter. And starter's good. Being a starter is good in life. And being a finisher is even better because you get the things done that most other people give up along the journey. So make sure you stay all the way through to get the best golden nuggets from Kristie in this amazing interview. Okay, so let's introduce her and then bring her on the screen. Kristie Keever is the brand visionary behind some of the most prestigious and emerging female icons impacting their markets today. She creates brand identities for impact-making women who are on a mission to build an empire with financial impact to make a difference. Kristie brings over 20 years of brand and business building experience, and in the 10 plus years she has started working privately with clients, they have tripled and quadrupled their revenue, been featured in major media publications, spoken internationally, signed series book deals, and built tribes that span the globe. Her mission is to create clarity from complicated and to empower women to attract loyal tribes with her patent-pending method known as the R.I.P.L effect, based on secrets used by the most iconic celebrity brands in the marketplace today. And we're absolutely blessed to have her here with us today. Kristie, are you ready to rock this?
I am ready. Let's do this.
Boom! We're ready. We're doing it. Awesome. Love it, love it, love it, Kristie. So thank you so much. You're now live on Becoming Your Greatest Possible Self. We appreciate you being here and sharing your wisdom and huge track record of experience with our audience so that we can master ourselves, master our own brands, master our own businesses, and really have that impact that we're looking for in the world. Thanks so much for being here.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to chat with you.
Awesome. Awesome. So we're going to dive right into the theme of the day, which is how to not care what people think. So Kristie, how does this show up for you, not caring what people think, and how would you approach not caring what people think?
Well, the approach to it, it's actually it's a lot harder to do than it is to say, right? Yes. Doing it is one thing, saying it is another.
Yep.
But it just takes practice. It takes that self-empowerment to grow and build your confidence to get to a point where you know without a doubt that what you're doing is what you're meant to be doing. It's the impact that you're looking to make. It's the message that you were gifted to deliver, and just doing it with so much clarity and confidence to say that this is who I am. And the only opinion that really matters is mine, knowing that I'm making an impact, doing the right things I'm supposed to.
Wow. I love it. I love how that just is so in alignment with you and what you do, helping people figure out their purpose, their message, their brand, and be able to communicate it effectively, And it's not so much about caring what other people think, but it's about being congruent in how I communicate it so that it reaches the right people in the right ears at the right time.
Exactly. That's the secret sauce right there. That's magic. Because when you try to speak to everybody, you're really not speaking to anyone, right?
No. You're not. I love it. I love it, Kristie. So that's super powerful. What a great note to start this on. And just a little bit more about you. I want to dive into that. And what do you stand for? What do your clients really come to you for? I mentioned a little bit about it in the bio, but just in your own words, let's introduce our audience a little bit more to you.
Yeah, my clients come to me because they really struggle to be seen. They
Mm,
really want to be seen. They really have their heart of heart desire to make an impact in any capacity possible, but they really struggle with the confidence because they
mm,
lack the clarity on how to
totally.
deliver that. Right?
Wow.
How do I do that exactly? I see so many amazing people out there killing it online, doing all these great things, and I can do that too, but how
Mm,
do I do that? How do I start from where I am and get to that level of impact? Because
mm.
I know that I'm capable of making it happen.
Wow, that's so powerful, so concise. So, gosh, you've done this. We can tell you've really done this before, Kristie. Like
Yep.
once or twice.
Just once or twice, maybe my second rodeo, not my first.
That's awesome. I love it. I love how confident you are. So everyone who's watching, listening, or just really receiving this message from Kristie right now, if you have any questions, make sure you ask them in the comments. Make sure you message her if at all you feel inspired. Hey, like drop the interview and just go freaking contact her. That's the one thing I think is more powerful than any interview is like actually contacting, actually reaching out, actually building the relationship with an influencer. So stay tuned in the interview and contact Kristie if you have any questions. So Kristie, we're gonna go back into your journey because things weren't always like this with you being so confident and clear. And I love how like clarity is so important. That clarity piece for you and what you teach your clients is important because that's everything. Being able to be clear on it, and then then it's easy to communicate if it's clear. But things weren't always like this for you and in your ability to massively help your clients. So let's go back on the journey and talk about some of those challenging moments, the defining moments that had you build your business, that had you build your career and your brand, and let's go through some of those.
Okay. I'm excited. Yes, let's do because you're right. It hasn't always been like this.
Right.
And it is a journey and a path to self-discovery to really find that, right?
Yeah.
And it's not the easiest thing to do.
Mm. It takes some serious like labors of love. Something I heard just real quick the other day. It's like as long as I didn't want to work hard. This is my own personal journey. I didn't want to work hard. I wanted everything to be easy. I wanted it to be like fun and joyful and like a video game and super fun, right? And life takes work. And so I heard recently, I was like, it said, be willing to work hard for the things that are worth working hard for. And
Uh,
building a brand and living a purpose, those are worth working hard for. So, Kristie, let's go back. Where does it all begin? Where does the really learning how to communicate with people to what their heart is telling them, what their heart wants, what their soul and their purpose really wants? How did you even know that was something that was important to you?
I think that this has definitely been something that's present from childhood. My journey
Mm,
really starts at a very young age where I was probably about 12 years old. And I realized, all of a sudden, I just realized one day,
mm,
my parents work incredibly hard for the things that we have. And we didn't have a lot, but we had a lot of love and a lot of inspiration,
mm,
right? And so I just said to myself one day, I just woke up one day. I don't know what happened exactly, but I just somehow knew that I had a bigger calling,
yeah.
that I was supposed to do big things. I just didn't know exactly what that meant or what that looked like or any of the answers to the questions that go with what is that, right? I just knew, like, oh my gosh, I have so many questions. I have to do these things and I have to make it happen.
Yeah.
And one of the things that my parents always told me from really early on is that you can do or become anything you want to.
Yes.
You just have to decide that you're willing to work for it and then go make it happen and not give up on yourself. And so I made that my life's mission to do just that. And so I have the blessing of being able to say I'm a double first generation in my family. I'm the first one to
Mm,
graduate high school. am definitely the first one to ever go to and finish college.
Wow.
So I have that double first.
Mm.
But how I got there was being willing to put myself out there, make myself vulnerable, ask a ton of questions to people that I didn't even know, just to try to figure stuff out, because I really struggled and didn't have a solid mentor past a certain level of expectation, right? So I only had my family who only knew as much as they knew. And outside of that, I had to figure it out on my own.
Yeah.
So it was really this journey of figuring out what questions do I need to ask and how do I have these conversations with people so that I don't come across just super annoyingly nosy, but really genuinely curious to better myself and better my situation, right?
Were you perceived as nosy? Were you perceived as nosy early on?
I actually, no, I wasn't. So
okay, good.
Luckily, I am blessed with a long line of entrepreneurs, and we have the gift of gab. We master the art of conversation, and I do it really well. And I'm really proud of that, because it's important to make people feel appreciated, even if they're gifting you their time and their knowledge and their information. You really have to honor and respect that, right? Yeah. And so I think just me being who I am naturally and asking questions and going through the process, I was able to figure out and find what I needed. But part of that journey, also a big piece of it, what I noticed is that I was struggling myself, but in a different way than my parents struggled, right? So I really struggled to find the information. I really struggled to find the mentors. I really struggled to find the guidance. I really struggled with the right path of what to do, even though I still had that belief in myself, like I can do this. I just don't know how.
Well, it's like the drive, the momentum is like all right here, ready to unleash.
Like bursting at the seams. It's like, get out of me. And I'm like, what does that even look like? I'm just going to keep going forward because that's all I know to do, right? And so what happened, I'm now at 11 years, actually, where I've been in business for myself in some shape or form, in some capacity, trying to figure out where I fit, right? What my purpose is and how do I actually execute on that purpose. And what I've learned to realize over time, because part of the branding process as well is fine tuning where you are, what you're doing, and what that looks like, because it's an evolutionary process. It's not just you arrive one day, here I am, I'm fabulous, or not. It's you become this person through a journey, right? And so as I've gone through this journey, really trying to explore my mentorship and explore all of these pieces and parts that need to be there, I realized that as I go through my journey, I am building knowledge and skill set and information and expertise and able to answer questions of people who are trying to figure out their path, just getting started. And my mission then became to be the resource, to provide the tools, to share my knowledge and information, to empower somebody else's confidence to do the same thing, but with more clarity, more cohesion, more consistency, and more results based off of action.
Yeah. So what was the moment where you're like, hey, I'm doing all this for myself and I know I can serve and support others doing this? Like, when did it click? Was it a series of events? Did it kind of just happen over time?
Yeah. So it's twofold, actually. Okay. So when I started my business, I just started because I just wanted to serve. I wanted to help people. I knew that there was pieces missing in the equation. I've always been in some kind of branding, marketing, advertising kind of arena, right? And I realized that there were pieces missing. But as I started to build my confidence and ask better questions of my clients and fine tune my process, I realized that there was a huge piece missing. And that piece missing was where I'm serving now to, empower you with the tools and the resources, but really creating structure around how I deliver that and how I package that and how I get you from point A to point Z, making impact and income. It's been years of fine tuning, but I would say it was probably within my third year of business where I really started to look at how I was doing business and really taking a step back to assess what's working, what's not, what do I really want to be doing, how do I want to be doing it, what's missing, that I fine tuned and realized that I need to let go of some of the ways that I'm working with people in order to really dig deeper into these areas to really see results and impact.
Wow. What was the most difficult part about letting go of those things?
I think it's always difficult to let go of things, but it's giving yourself permission to take that step back, because we get so stuck in the trenches of just doing and being and making all the things happen that we forget to stop and look up because we're busy digging that trench, right?
Yeah.
So giving yourself permission to stop, catch your breath for a minute and really look to see what's going on, what is here, and then face that hard reality of, yes, I can do this and I do it really well, but does it mean that I should still continue to do it? Right.
Yeah.
So that's probably the hardest thing, is getting to that point where I know, and I'm very intuitive. So I can just feel when something like that is coming, feeling like it's time to reassess.
Yeah.
But then having to make that hard decision, because I am a people pleaser as well. I don't like to disappoint people or myself.
Right.
And so letting go of something that is serving a small segment of people with, the expectation that I'll be able to create space to make a bigger impact in a different way, it's still hard to say no and to let go of that, right?
Yeah.
It's never easy.
Yeah, and I think that like goes into the identity level, right? Like, who do I know myself as? I know myself as someone who can make anything work no matter what it takes, And there's certain things that it just doesn't make sense to work those things anymore, and we have to trust ourselves to say, that's not really me anymore. I've evolved past that. I've become more aligned, more specific, more niched, more narrowed, more expertise in this specific direction. Let's pour even more into that focus, or into this, genius zone that we have.
Exactly. And that's exactly what it is right there. You nailed it.
I love it. I love it. So you were focusing on, delivering this more effectively because you felt like, one, you didn't really get what you wanted as quickly and as, effectively, efficiently in your style. You saw a better vision for it to be delivered. So tell us about how that unfolded in your, brand strategy and helping people design their life, design their purpose, design their business, to be able to make that maximum impact. What was the evolution like of your business? Tell us about some of those key points.
Yeah. The first thing in the evolution was recognizing that there was a pattern. So, being a designer, being a creative director, and being, great at visual aspects of things, I recognize patterns and trends and stuff as well. And so what I started to recognize was that there was a specific step-by-step pattern to what I was doing that I needed to kind of just, brain dump, get out my blank pieces of paper and write stuff down and figure out, okay, what's the step-by-step that I'm taking people through right here? Yes. What research do I need to do to see what's missing, and what's already invented that works really well that I can fine tune and adjust to my style and how I like to deliver things and make it work with the rest of the stuff that I'm doing. So it's kind of creating this collage, hodgepodgey bunch of things to make it make sense and actually work. And then practice the execution of it so that every single time I do, asking questions again, being able to fine tune. How is this working? Does this feel good? What kind of results are you having 6 months later, 12 months later? What kind of continuous, tinkering do I need to do? I call it, I think of it just like, and I teach this to my clients as well. Think about the process just as you are buying a new guitar, taking it out of the box for the first time. It's never perfect, right? We each have our own styles and tastes and preferences. And so you have to strum and tweak until you get it to that point that just sings to your heart's desire. Right. So the same process happens, is that constant tweaking, but being vulnerable enough to ask the clients to say what is working and what's not working. What do we want to change? What can I enhance? How can I bring more value? What can I add to the equation? If it's not me, then who else? Knowing that I'm not the end all be all, I'm really the starting point to everything. Right. But it's being, I think it's really coming from the mindset and the perspective that it's bigger than you, so that you get stuck in your own way of saying, I have to do all of this and it has to come from me and I have to create it, kind of thing, right?
Wow. Yeah.
You have to put ego aside to say, if I am being true and fully aligned with my mission and my passion and my purpose, then it has to be bigger than me, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my gosh. And I love that because it's like you mentioned some really practical things that people can do, like asking, hey, what's working? What's not working? How can this be improved? How can we, really meet your expectations? If you could have a dream result at the end of this, what would that be? And then like checking in on that. Hey, how am I doing on that dream result that we talked about, a month ago, 3 months ago, 6 months ago? That's like so powerful that a lot of people just aren't willing to do.
It's so scary
Yeah.
to ask for feedback because you're afraid of doing something wrong or not being good enough, right? That whole self-talk, negative self-talk, whatever comes into play.
Yeah.
And people are so afraid to actually hear it out loud. So they
Mm.
don't ask the questions in fear of not hearing what they want to hear.
Wow.
But if you're actually intentionally designing something that is impactful and is working, then you should never be afraid for that feedback because
Mm.
it's only to be used to help and add enhancements to it, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I love it. And we know that you've gotten tons of feedback because you're showing up so powerfully, so aligned, Kristie. I'm curious, like, what was some of the feedback that you got that really shaped you into being the amazing communicator, the confident, certain, clear woman who's with us today? What were some of those things that really shaped you?
That is a really great question. And it really does require me to be vulnerable because a lot of them took a long time for me to overcome
Mm.
the
Yeah.
feedback that I got, right?
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
takes mental work,
Totally.
mindset work,
Totally.
self development work, therapy, all of the above, right? Especially being an empathetic people pleaser, like
Yeah.
that hurts
Yeah.
sometimes.
Yeah.
But some of the core pieces for me was really giving myself permission to show up more
Mm.
authentically in
Yeah.
my own capacity, sharing my stories, making myself vulnerable, really talking about what's going on behind the scenes
Mm.
and why, really sharing the why behind what it is that I'm doing.
Mm.
Because for a long time, people thought it was just about the money or just about the impact
Yeah.
or whatever that translation of impact looks like, but the perception versus reality is always different, right?
Totally.
But the only way your audience is ever going to know reality is if you take initiative and you share it with them.
Mm.
And so the feedback that I got is, I understand the process that you're taking me through and the example that you're showing me, but what is your role in this? How are
Mm.
you able to really help me with this? And why should I pick you as the person to really make the difference here? Right.
Mm.
And so it was really learning how to be comfortable with telling my own story, sharing my own examples,
Mm.
really, walking the walk to build my own brand as well, because I chose to hide behind the scenes for a
Mhm.
long time in my business because I am really great at getting you out there so that you can go to the stage to make an impact. But myself, yeah, I don't want to do video and I'm not going to tell my story. So yeah, so it was facing that reality, but really, swallowing my pride enough to really ask the question, like, how can I really make this more impactful? What
Mm.
can I do differently to really bring more value to it, to really help encourage you along the way, right? So that was the biggest one. And that one probably hit me about 7 years ago
Mm.
as like the first level of kind of getting through stuff. And it took me about a year to kind of work through all of the self-talk and building my confidence and finding ways that felt good to me to
Mm.
get my information and myself and my story out there so that I can grow and build from it. So basically, I took myself through the exact same process I take my clients through
Yeah.
so that I can experience it firsthand as well.
Wow, that's so powerful, and I love how you took yourself through that because oftentimes we will have this genius that we're so ready and willing and eager to take other people through and give to other and bestow this life gift to them to help them, right? And yet we don't like really take ourselves through that process and also be aware of how it makes us feel, be aware of, try to do our best to be like objective and if I was in this position or this situation, how would I see it then? And like to zoom out of it and to go through it as a participant rather than as the creator of it, ego attached to defending it and it's our baby and all these kinds of things.
Yep. Something amazing really happened though after I did that.
Yeah.
I think the best thing that you can do for yourself is make yourself your very best client,
Mm.
right?
Mm.
Because what And after I took myself through that process, I now was able to talk to my clients in a way that says, look, I understand how hard it is to put yourself out there. I understand that talk, that doubt that you're going through right now in your mind and in your heart, what's holding you back, that fear. I understand that, and I know what that feels like.
Wow.
But here's what we can do together to get past that, because I believe in you and I know that you believe in you too.
Wow. That's so powerful. So make yourself that best client and reassure, ourselves, and do what we would do for our favorite, most loving person. What would I say to them? How would I treat them? And then make sure we do those actions, like literally take the time, go through the process for ourselves to have it impact our own subconscious and our own mind and our own mindset and perspective of the world.
Yep.
Wow.
Yep, absolutely. And right there, like, I mean, you think about meeting new people. Anytime we meet somebody new, we're working towards building that trust, building that rapport, building that relationship, right? And the relationship and the connection grows deeper and deeper the more you know somebody, because the more you like them, the more you trust them, right? And being able to speak to your clients at that level, that's where you build these tribes, these massive tribes, and make that level of impact, because you're actually treating people as people, your clients as people, not just a transaction, not just an income base, not just a student or a client. Like, they are people that you build relationships with, right? And when you do that, something magical happens, because those people become your biggest fans and your biggest and your best promoters, because they know exactly firsthand what it's like to experience you, and vice versa.
Wow. I love that we're talking about tribes today, and we're going to get into that even more, because I know a lot of people want to build a tribe, build a community, build an online, group that's their people, right? Like, what better way to do business than to be the leader of the people who love your stuff and speak the same language and have the same values. And for me personally, like, I just got a huge dose of reality like last week, and I was putting out tons of really great episodes about the marathon, posting those on social media. And my friend Rob Garcia, and he said, dude, like, you're putting out all this great stuff about yourself, and like, how are you really celebrating people who aren't necessarily on your show? How are you building your tribe, so to speak, in just social media land, right? Not even in a group, which I know we can talk about that, but just like as a human being, and people see you in the general public. Like, how are you representing your tribe, right? And not just tribe of becoming your greatest possible self, but the people I love, the people I support, the people who believe the same things that I do. And there was actions that I just wasn't taking to show, to demonstrate. And to anyone on the outside, they're like, oh yeah, cool, Chris is cool. He does this show. Cool. I'm going to keep going on with my life. But when they see this like diversity of client results, me celebrating clients, if they see this diversity of me shouting out people in a similar industry, coaching, personal development coaching, entrepreneurship coaching, and they're having a live event, but I really value them, I love them, and I want them to get the spotlight for a second, then I can do that. So I think that was a huge breakthrough for me to like really start caring about people and have my heart shine through, and something about like using the processes that I'm so ready to give to other people, like trusting myself with that, and trusting that like I'm good enough and worthy for that, and taking myself through those processes. And then that will result in a lot more impact in the people around me as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's such a really phenomenal question. I am glad that he asked that. I am glad that you shared that with me as well, because there's always, no one's perfect, right? We do the best that we can with what we have, and we learn and grow as we go.
Yeah.
But there's always something that we can add to it, skill sets that we can develop and things that we learn along the way. It's never too late to add something new and go deeper in that relationship and that connection, right?
Yeah. 100%. So that was a huge breakthrough for me to really engage with my tribe. And Kristie, you are a powerhouse at teaching people how to communicate with their tribes, grow tribes, and really like make that a profitable source for their business, where they're not just, like you said, they're not viewing it as a transaction, but they're viewing it as serving people, an amazing value exchange, because the person at the end result of this transaction is like, boom, mind blown. They get their dream result. If they follow the steps and they show up and they do their part, then they will get that dream result, kind of thing. So let's dive into what is the foundation that we need to know about building an amazing tribe.
Okay, that's a really great question. So there are actually 4 key components to building an amazing tribe. Okay.
Perfect.
The
I love your
first
structure everywhere, everywhere.
Awesome. Thank you. So the first thing that you really, really need to know is what is that big picture vision that you have, right? They always say, begin with the end in mind, know what your plan is. You don't want to just be doing things haphazardly. You want to do it with intention. And the only way to do that is to know what that big picture vision is. What is your goal? Knowing that it can be modified at any time, right? So where you are right now, what's that big picture vision? Second thing is knowing who your audience is.
Okay.
And a lot of people struggle with this because they think, oh my gosh, what I have serves everybody and everyone's going to be perfect for this. Well, no, you want to be really intentional and go deep in your impact instead of wide in your impact, right? And so knowing who that audience is, that avatar that you really want to serve, and knowing them like you know your sister or your brother or your best friend, know them really, really well, because that's where you create something that I call emotional currency. When they're emotionally connected and invested in you, they are more likely to buy from you and keep coming back for more. Okay. The third thing is making sure that now you know what your vision is. Now you know who your audience is. You want to make sure that your message is on point. So making sure you're speaking to your audience in the way that they naturally speak themselves, those keywords, those trigger words that tug at their heart, that give them that inspiration that they're looking for, that helps to communicate to them that thing that's keeping them up at night that they are worried and stressed about. You're saying exactly what they are looking for, because then they can really see you as the solution to the problem that they're having, the person they've been longing to and looking for and didn't even know they were looking for you. But they start to hear your message in your story and they're thinking, hey, I need to talk to this person. I want to know more. I want to learn more. Tell me more.
It's
right?
like music to their soul, you know?
Music to the soul. Absolutely. I'm going to borrow that phrase right there. Music to the soul. Exactly. It's all in the conversation, right? When you're talking to somebody and you feel that connection, you're invested in them emotionally, mentally, monetarily, etc. And it keeps growing exponentially, right? So then the last thing that you want is to make sure that you have cohesion and consistency in everything that you do. You want to have cohesion and consistency in the visuals that you're putting out there. So using consistent colors and fonts, even if you don't have a brand, just colors and fonts can make all the difference, because then at least you can be recognized for something, right? The connecting of the dots to draw you to you. Right. Cohesion and consistency in the things that you're talking about as well. So the stories that you're telling, the message that you're delivering, the way of which you work with people, just making sure there's cohesion and consistency in things that you're doing. And you're not perceived as that one person who stands up in a networking room who talks about, oh, I do this, and then I do this, and on weekends I do this. And if you need this, by the way, I can also do that for you. No. Be known for what you really do, what you're really good at, and it actually goes deep as well in the conversation instead of spreading wide. And so you want to make sure that you're cohesive and consistent in that as well. So I have this this process that I do with my clients called creating your 6 core, and it's creating your 6 core categories of content so that everything that you talk about should always fall into one of those 6 key categories, and you will always be cohesive and consistent.
Wow. Oh my gosh, that's beautiful. And I just want to go back a bit. And you talked about going narrow and going deep versus going wide, which is, I think, is super, super important today. Because I know, I'll speak from my firsthand experience. Like, I was always trying to get as many conversations started as I could possibly have going at one time. And I got so freaking burnt out, got Instagram, got Facebook Messenger, got emails, got texting, got Slack, got all these different places going, and trying to be like impressive to myself, saying, I talk to like 100 people on Facebook in a day and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, I was just boosting up my own ego to try to prove something, that I was worthy, that I was enough, that whatever it was. And it's like, it totally left me unfulfilled. And so like, I recently really started going deeper and saying, I just love having this conversation, and I'm going to give this person everything I've got. I'm just going to be like the most loving force and just love on them, help them with whatever they need, whatever their challenges are, and just be there with them and like go deep in each conversation. And that's also translating to more clarity on my perfect client and perfect avatar. So 100% Kristie, like what you're doing, what you're talking about, I 100% resonate and align with it. It is awesome and super, super powerful.
Yay!
Yes. 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 So in terms of the content that people are creating, they can't even like people they can start creating content. They can build momentum, and really that's not the key thing that they need to get right. They need to know like what's your vision, right? Like starting off with the vision, then you get to know your audience, right? It's like cool. Where do you want to be? What kind of business do you want to run? What kind of lifestyle do you want to have? How do you want to impact the world? What's important to you, right? Like that's first. And then you get to find out, okay, who's the audience who you best serve in alignment with that vision to make that a reality. What people do you want to hang around? What people, because like a lot of people say, hey, I had this challenge, this trauma in my past, and I want to serve those people. And I'm like, cool, great. That's awesome. Love that. And did you ask yourself the question of what's life going to be like if you're around these types of people 24/7? Like people who are like still in it. They don't want to get out. They want to stay in that victim. It's like, no, like just because you went through it doesn't mean you have to specifically serve those people who are in that moment. Maybe you serve people a couple steps ahead who've gotten out of it, but they're still holding on to that stuff, So knowing that audience is super important. And then, making sure that message is on point, knowing those trigger words that you were talking about, understanding your target avatar, what language they're saying to themselves, what keeps them up at night, what like keeps them stuck, what's the thing that they're hoping nobody else finds out about them because they're just so afraid, like that everything will come crashing down in their world and their reality if this one secret was to be discovered, whatever it might be, right? And then the last thing you mentioned was cohesion and consistency, and that is super powerful because it's like this you have those three powerful: the vision, the audience, the message, and it's like, okay, are you effectively executing on that? And are you measuring? Are you testing? Are you continually checking in? Because if you're not doing that, then you don't have a mindset of it's important to stay rooted in the fundamentals and what we discussed at the very beginning. Am I still following the plan to get to my vision?
Exactly. Have you ever heard the story of the gold digger?
Tell me.
So the story of the gold digger goes like this. So there is, so you and I, okay, I'm giving you the instructions and I'm telling you what to do. I'm not giving you the specific step by step. I just say, this is the outcome and the mission that you're looking for. In this area, it's a backyard full of dirt and it's fenced in, so you've got a parameter. Okay. There is a massive pot of gold here for you to find, and it's yours for the taking. You just have to find it, and it's yours. Okay? So I give you a shovel, and I say, go for it. You have 6 hours, right? Okay. So then you take your shovel, and you start digging. And you pick a spot, you're like, oh, this is a great spot. I'm going to start right here. And so you start digging, you dig and you dig and you dig and you dig, and you think, oh, I'm in the wrong spot. So you pick up and you move to a different location. And you dig and you dig and you dig and you dig, and thinking, oh, I have to put a little bit more effort, a little bit more attention. I got to keep going. And then you move to another spot, you dig and you dig. I'm like, I got to find this pot of gold. Long story short, by the end of the day, you come back to me defeated. Time is up. You did not find your pot of gold. And then I tell you that had you stayed in the very first spot you picked and dug a little bit deeper, you would have found your gold.
Oh my gosh. I would be so pissed.
Me too. But that's what we do in business. That's what we do when we don't focus on those 4 core categories that I just shared with you. We are running around that entire yard searching for that pot of gold, trying different things, driving in different lanes, speaking to different people, trying all the things, right? There's so many things out there that we don't stay centered and focused on finding that pot of gold. And that pot of gold to us is just fulfilling our life's purpose and our passion.
That's so amazing, Kristie. And I've had challenges with this, like myself, like shiny object syndrome galore, right?
Guilty. Guilty.
So the one thing I always ask myself, and I think I'm still like really integrating the answer in a response that I'm like aligned with, but like, how do we know when to stick with the plan and when to stay continuing on that, and when to like pivot, when to listen to our intuition and be open to new things coming into our environment to help us on the journey?
Yes, that's such a really good and important question. I'm so glad you asked that. I think a lot of it has to do with intuition. So
Mm,
remember towards the beginning of our conversation, we talked about having those checkpoints where you stop to take
yeah.
a breath, to catch your breath and really assess what's going on. But you have to do a head check and a heart check at the same time,
Ooh,
right? Does this still feel right? Am I still making an impact? Are clients happy with the results? How do I feel as I'm giving this process to my audience and my clients?
yeah.
Am I really executing my life's work the way that makes me feel fulfilled at the same time?
Mm,
And if the answer at any point is a no, or even if you pause to say, that's a sign right there,
wow.
right? It's a sign that you haven't quite yet arrived at a final definitive solution or an answer, but
Mm,
it's time to really pay attention to that and
mm,
monitor it as you go.
mm,
Because that, I think, those are indicators,
mm.
first signs, because you can always, in any situation, you can always think back, oh, yeah, I did see signs along the way kind of telling me that I was getting off track or getting
Yeah.
off course or I should have done this or whatever. But we never pay attention to them because we're looking for that pot of gold, right?
Yeah.
And so if we stop and really take that breath to reassess and give ourselves, again, making ourselves our very own best clients, taking
Yeah.
ourselves through our own process, we will arrive at the answers to what we're looking for a lot faster and a
Yeah.
lot easier because we're giving ourselves permission and the space to be able to do it.
Mm. Mm, I love it. I love it. That's such a, that question is so important for like life, life awareness, like living your purpose. If you want to live your
Yeah.
purpose, you have to keep checking in. And I think that one of the challenges that a lot of millennials have is like they're so impatient to get to
Yes.
the end destination, to get to the result, to the impact, to the community, whatever it might be. So it's like just really learning to trust ourselves and have that patience and not deny the signals and the signs, like you said. We really have to master both of those. Like, hey, am I really taking the time to be aware of like what is life telling me? What are the indicators that I'm getting? What are the signals? And if we're getting those, and it's like, well, everything feels on track, but I'm still not making the progress that I want. Okay, well then you get to start diving into grace, compassion, and patience for yourself.
Exactly, exactly. And that's the thing too. And I think the only way to really get there, to figure out a system and a process that works for you, is
Yeah.
just that trial and error. It's the
Yeah.
strumming and tweaking of that guitar, right? The
Mm,
only way to know is to do
yeah.
and uncover the best way and the best process for you, because we're all different, right? We have
Mm,
our own indicators, our own intuition. Everything is unique. And so the only way to know is to do it and to
yeah.
keep doing it every single time and having just a regular checkpoint system that you establish for yourself, because there really is no other way to do it.
Yeah.
Because
100%.
even, and I think that's the reason why a lot of us hire coaches and a
Yes.
lot of us hire people to guide us in the right direction, if you will. But bottom line, end of day, end of story, the only one that really knows is us,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. And like I hate to put this out there, but it is a truth that sometimes we simply hire a coach because we aren't certain in ourselves, and we feel like we need some external authority or validation to like make us feel better, to create the result that we want. And I think that there's a time and a place. Like, if you don't, like, listen, people listening right now, if you don't have your vision, your audience, and your message, and you're doing the cohesion and consistency, if you're not doing those, then okay, in reality, you best be talking to Kristie. Okay. But if you have all those things, and you're like masterful with it, and you're still like, man, I just don't have enough. I need a coach. And like, always have a coach. I always recommend having a coach. And like, don't do it because you're trying to fill a gap
Yes. Oh,
in
yes.
yourself, in your soul, right?
That's what therapy is for, and I
Right.
highly encourage therapy. Everybody needs it. Maybe not
Yeah.
all the time, but we do, because
Yes.
We do. There's this space for that. And I absolutely agree. I think there's a time and a place, and coaching is absolutely vital to the
Yes.
success of your business.
Yes.
But at the same time, sometimes the coaching needs to be with yourself,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, learn to trust yourself. So,
Right.
Kristie, I know you talked about the 6 core categories of content. If you wanted to share those, would love to hear what those are. And in addition to that, you can skim over those, or just like the tactical things. Like you mentioned the framework. Now, in terms of like tactically succeeding with building a tribe, I'd love to know if there's anything else you'd really recommend that our audience takes action on or is aware of and is using as a resource.
Yeah, that's a really great question. Okay, so let's dig into the 6 core categories for just a
Cool.
little bit.
Cool.
So it is when people think of building a brand, there's usually a disconnect. And I used to hear this for a long time, for many years. I don't hear it as much anymore. And I think it's because my audience is fine-tuned. But there's still
Mm.
the belief that business needs to be separate from personal and vice versa.
Mm.
But when you're building a brand, especially one that has any kind of impact, there is no such thing as separation of business and personal, because you are your brand,
Wow.
right?
Wow.
So your core categories need to be around who you are as a person, what your lifestyle is,
Mm.
what it is that you do, or who you serve. Talking about the stories of the impact. So what does that journey look like? Your journey, their journey, sharing all the details. We love stories, right? So sharing that information
Mhm.
and making sure that you're visually and verbally present everywhere in your brand.
Mm.
So core categories, meaning that if what you're wanting to talk about, so let's say, well, I'm a branding coach, right?
Right.
I teach you strategies. If you go to my Instagram page and you look at my feed and you see recipes of awesome stuff that I ate, well, that is way out of alignment, right? That has nothing to do with what I talk about. Do I love a good recipe? Absolutely. Do I share it on my feed? Absolutely not. So there's a time and a place for things that you share
Yeah.
as it's in alignment, because my goal and my mission is to build my personal brand, because that is what I do,
Yeah,
right?
and speaking of the recipes thing, it wouldn't be in your audience's best interest for you to start being a part-time side hustle recipe entrepreneur, right? Because there's someone out there who's a freaking genius out that at that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I know several people who are amazing at it, way better than I am. And so yeah, so it's about also having people in your tribe to tribe building is really connecting people to
Yeah,
people, right?
yeah,
And so
yeah.
when you have something like people do ask me about, my recipe or my menu planning process that I have, people that know me really well, I have a process for that.
Yeah.
And they do ask me about it. But then, when you need some specific training about it, I refer you to a friend of mine or
Totally.
other options of people that are out there, because again, I'm not the end all be all to building a brand. I am the starting point. And there's so many things that come after me that you do need to continue going to build on your skill set.
Yeah.
But at the same time, when I am building my brand and communicating with my tribe what it is that I can do and the impact that I make and who I am as a person,
Mhm.
it doesn't fit into my core categories. And so I save it for my sidebar private conversations when I do wine night with my girlfriends, or
Yes.
I just don't talk about it at all, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because it's just, there's a time and a place for everything. So that's the concept of the 6 core categories. So we just go through that process of defining exactly what your core categories are as it relates to your personal, your lifestyle, and your business.
You have such a powerful linear mind. Like I can tell, like
I am.
you just
I
got
am.
back.
I am. And they ask you in college in those job interviews, like, what's your scale? Are you creative? Are you, like it's strategical thought process, whatever, like lineal thinker. I'm like, I am right smack in the middle. I am both. True story. I am both for sure.
I love it. I love it. Well, it's just like, a lot of people go off on tangents and you like bring
Yes.
us back to the conversation. So, I really acknowledge you for your communication ability. I think that, maybe in the beginning of life that wouldn't, you said you had the gift of gab, right? Like that was your gift. So it's like, it's totally stuck with you. And also the strategy, because that's more of like, I would say a creative, interpersonal aspect, talking, communication, but there also is a linear aspect of it, and I think that you're really exceptional at that linear, keeping the flow going. So anyone who works with Kristie, trust that your timelines, your project management, On point.
Absolutely, yes. I've worked really hard to make sure those are all right where they need to be.
I
Thank
love
you.
it.
Thank you.
I love it.
So going back, we were
Mm.
talking about the 6 core categories, and what was the other? I forgot about
The
the other thing.
tribe building, like
Tribe building,
any other
yes.
tactics of that.
Yeah, so
Mm.
I have something that I've coined called the engagement formula.
Okay.
And something that's hugely missing from, putting yourself out there, building a brand. And let's face it, most of us are building online brands because we want to reach more people
Right.
than the face-to-face model actually does for us. However, that's important too, right? But the engagement model actually goes like this. When you're building your brand online in any capacity, in any platform, in any type of form or fashion, the most important thing to remember is that it's a conversation, right? In a conversation, it is a dialogue, meaning you give and you receive, and there's that exchange of information. So many times I do a lot of social feed reviews and hot seats within my coaching programs and things like that. We're looking at stuff all the time and the dialogue is missing. And if your goal and your intention is really to build a tribe, we talked about really serving your people, right? Making them feel special, making them feel impactful in the message that they're in the mission that they're going through. The only way to do that is to have dialogue. You have to be social on social.
Yeah.
And so it's a difficult concept because we know what it's like to have a face-to-face conversation, but something happens in the translation between the online format and the offline format where people think it's different, right? But it isn't different. It is exactly the same. It's just a longer timeline because you have to wait for people to reply when they have time and back and forth, right?
Yeah.
So that's the thing. So the engagement formula is making sure that you are setting yourself up to actually have a dialogue, an intentional conversation with people, and that you're not just putting information out there for the sake of, oh, I crossed it off my list, I got it done for the day. Your intention is actually to have a conversation. So that same concept, talking about going wide versus going deep, when you're using social media in any capacity to build your brand, you want to make sure that you're being very intentional there as well. So posting one time on one platform and having a dialogue conversation that extends is way more impactful than having one post on 10 different platforms and not saying a word.
Wow. That's huge. Say that again. That was so freaking powerful. Say it again. Say it again.
So it's way more impactful to be on one platform with one post, having one dialogue, drawn out conversation, than it is to have one post on 10 different platforms.
And that's like a meaningful dialogue that leads to more discovery, that leads to adding more value to the prospect, to the client, to the audience member, whatever it might be. It's like, so it triggers something. It triggers possibility. It triggers an opening for action. It triggers excitement and enthusiasm, whatever it might be, for them to get into action. Maybe it triggers, fear of missing out, and they're like, oh crap, I better, like, if this happens, oh my gosh, I better take action, like whatever.
Exactly. There's an amazing conversation happening over here. I gotta get in there. I gotta get my voice heard. Exactly.
Yes.
And so what happens is, and something, the magical piece too, again, when you know your audience and you're having this dialogue conversation, one thing to always keep in mind and to know is that your audience will always tell you exactly what they want and they need from you if you just have the conversation with
Preach. Preach.
But you got to create the space to get them talking.
Yeah. And you mentioned something earlier about it's bigger than you, right? So like, don't get caught up in, well, what are they going to think and blah, blah, blah. Go freaking have the conversation and ask these people what they want. You'll probably benefit them more than you can even recognize that it'll benefit you, like what they want in their solution.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Every single time.
Oh my gosh. I love it, Kristie. So this has been a blast. Like, I'm having so much fun. And And fortunately, like this is an hour. We got a ton of really great info in, and our audience is definitely wanting to know how they can stay connected, how they can take those next steps, how they can really step into their own brand that represents them, their own purpose, living it out, being, richly rewarded, because we all deserve to be richly rewarded for our gifts, for our talents, for our experience, for our life. We're exchanging it either way. We're either going to exchange it doing things that we really love, or we're going to exchange it doing things that we hate. So you might as well do something that you love, and Kristie can help you do that in a formula, in a process, in a total system that she has absolutely designed. So Kristie, how can they continue their journey with you, and what are the next steps for them?
Yeah, so a couple different things. So I actually am in transition as well, building out a new brand and an update on
Ooh.
my website as well. So the best place for the moment to connect with me is always going to be Instagram.
Okay.
I'm at Kristie Keever. It's Kristie. And then I also have a Facebook group where I do trainings and have conversations and dig deeper into the conversation every single week in my group. It's called the Social Brand Society.
Mm.
And I'm really empowering you to build your brand online, knowing how to have the conversations, and then also talking about other things, business and mindset related as well.
Wow. So awesome. I love it. I love it, Kristie. You are on fire. This has been an
Thank you.
absolute pleasure. Thank you for the work that you do in the world. Thank you for illuminating people's path, helping them, take that next step, and being so strategic, being real, having a lot of fun, and just being confident and certain in what you do, because it comes across. And thank you for doing the work on yourself. I'm sure you've done so much work on yourself, like in the process.
Constantly, every day. Yes, so much. But thank you so much for having me. This has been a true pleasure. I've very much enjoyed my time chatting with you, and I'm excited to share this message with your audience as well.
Yes.
So,
Yes. Awesome. So if you're listening or watching right now, take action, connect with Kristie, have a conversation, go to her group, find out more, and keep growing into your greatest possible self with her. And Kristie, thanks so much for being on. We appreciate you, and I hope you have the best day ever, okay?
Chris, thank you so much.
You're welcome. We'll see you soon.
Bye.